Today we have great honor to invite Mr. Frank Lavin to our studio. Mr. Lavin is the CEO and founder of Export Now, and he is a former undersecretary for international commerce. Can you tell us briefly about what the website is about, Export Now?
Yeah. Our U.S. website is Export Now. That's the U.S. company. The Chinese website is Meilike, M-E-I-L-I-K, meilike.com. But what Export Now does is allows any U.S. company to sell online in China from the U.S. So it's only consumer product companies. But any U.S. company can now post and sell online in China from their office in the U.S. Meaning sometimes selling into China, entering the China market is very difficult for U.S. companies. They think they have to travel a great distance. They're not familiar with the language or the culture. They have all sorts of immediate expenses, legal expenses, hiring people, finding office. What e-commerce does is says you don't need to do that.
I understand that e-commerce is a big trend now. How did you come up with this idea?
E-commerce is more developed in China than any other country in the world, even in the U.S. And you could say, in a way, it's leapfrog technology. The U.S. has a shopping mall infrastructure and car ownership density, and China, I think, is just leapfrogging that to go right to e-commerce. If everybody's online, e-commerce can actually be easier, faster, cheaper, more reliable than traditional channels. A few years ago, because I was working at the Shanghai Expo, and I was working for the U.S. Pavilion, one of my responsibilities was to help run the online store. And because the expo is only 6 months long, we talked with Alibaba and said, can someone help us run the online store? Because for 6 months, we cannot hire people, produce material, train staff, set up all the arrangements. We really have to outsource this. And the response from Tmall was, we're very happy to host your store, but we don't provide these services. So that's when I first got the idea to say somebody could be a service provider, could help foreign companies sell online. All the domestic companies in China have warehouse, they have staff, they have inventory, they don't need help. But if you're a foreign company, it can be quite complicated.
So I understand that this Export Now is more focused on the small business in U.S.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So those small businesses don't have much access or resources in China.
Right.
So when you pitch this idea to the American small business people, and how did they receive this idea?
Think of a company that might be able to reach $1 million in sales in China. It's very difficult to manage that and to chase that $1 million from your head office. You say, I can't fly to Shanghai every month, I can't hire, it's too much bother to just for $1 million. So we say to that company, fine, please give us your product. We'll get you your $1 million. We'll sell it all through e-commerce, right? So what we mainly did in the U.S. Yingzi is we present to local business groups. So we did presentations in city chambers of commerce and business groups. We did a summer tour around the United States with Alibaba, a joint tour. We did a special promotion program in Michigan with the state of Michigan. They were very helpful. So we've had a number of programs and initiatives to reach small businesses in the United States.
What was their response?
Well, we feel pretty good. So far, so good. We have, as of today, we have 21 companies currently selling. We have about 40 more in the pipeline. I think that by January, we will have over 100 companies selling online on this system. So not bad.
So can you tell us, any success stories so far?
One of our companies we work with, the U.S. National Football League. We run their official store in China. We sell U.S. footballs in China. And you might say this is strange because, of course, it is not in Chinese tradition, it is not a well-known sport. It's very new. So we brought in a load of footballs. We sold out in 3 hours. Because there are club teams, informal teams, community teams, there are even university teams, college teams. So there are people who play it in China. So this was very interesting for us to find this out.
It's really unexpected.
We say in general, your most important asset is your brand. What your brand communicates, what your brand states in terms of a commitment to the consumer. So your brand should have the same integrity in China as it does in the United States. So we'd say this to the U.S. company: you should be selling the same product, the same quality. You might not have as deep a penetration in China because of purchasing power and so forth, as we talked, but that's okay because you've maintained the integrity. So that's rule number one. Rule number two, I think what I mentioned before, is you have to have a differentiated product. China has many manufacturing companies, very sophisticated companies. So what is special about your product? It must be something different that the consumer respects and likes and wants. A third point we make is because you are looking at this is a different culture, different language, we think the products work best if they do not require assembly. Yingzi, think of it like a tennis racket. You go online, you want to buy a tennis racket, you see it online, you buy it. As soon as you open the box, you say, perfect, it's my tennis racket.
Because you used to work with the Department of Commerce
Sure.
and working with a lot of U.S.-China trade issues.
Right.
So what's your judgment for the future
Yeah.
trade relations between the two countries?
Our job in government, of course, is to always look at problems and deal with problems. That's our job in Washington, that's the Chinese government job in Beijing. But the trouble is, if all you do is talk about problems, you risk defining the entire relationship negatively. And if every time I see you, we just talk about problems. In fact, if you look at what's happening in U.S.-China trade, there's an enormous amount of good news. There's a lot of success both ways. And U.S. companies are competing every day in China. Chinese companies are very successful in the U.S. market. So what we should do is find a way to focus on the good news and to say, of course, we always have to fix problems. That's our responsibility in government. But don't forget that for most businesses in China, most U.S. businesses in China, it's a standard, regularized, very positive operating environment.